March 18, 2024, Vladimir Putin once again won the Russian presidential election for the fifth time, paving the way for him to lead Russia until at least 2036. Putin won this year's election with 87% of the total vote. In the long history of his rule, Putin is only a few years behind Joseph Stalin. However, with just a few more years of good health and longevity, Putin could surpass Stalin's record for being Russia's longest reigning leader. In his victory speech, Putin declared that this result would make Russia stronger and more prosperous. Before we jump into this exciting story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps the channel grow, and I'd appreciate it so much. Thanks for your support. Putin indirectly believes that he, and only he, is the right person to lead Russia. The Russian people cannot even imagine who will replace Putin, and perhaps Putin himself believes that only death can stop his rule. Before the Russian people will have to think about a successor. Meanwhile, the world wonders how Putin can maintain such a strong grip on Russia, and why he is so powerful as a ruler. In 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved and fragmented into several countries, including Russia. As an independent country, the Russian Federation was led by a Communist Party politician named Boris Yeltsin. Yeltsin ruled for 8 years, managing to keep the Communist Party intact thanks to his alliance with oligarchs. This was a new strategy used by the leaders of the former #1 communist nation. On August 9, 1999, Yeltsin, who was ill, suddenly fired as prime minister and replaced him with his relatively unknown 46-year-old protege, Vladimir Putin. This little-known figure began his career as an intelligence officer in the KGB after graduating from Leningrad State University with a law degree in 1975. The KGB was the Soviet Union's intelligence agency, comparable to the CIA in the United States or the Stasi in East Germany. In 1976, Putin was promoted to first lieutenant. His job in the KGB focused on counterintelligence and monitoring foreign nationals. After undergoing training at the Andropov Red Banner Institute in Moscow and becoming fluent in German, Putin was stationed in Dresden, which was part of East Germany at the time, where he operated undercover as a translator for 5 years, from 1985 to 1990. In this capacity, Putin intriguingly served as an intelligence officer for 2 communist countries, the Soviet Union and East Germany. It is suspected that during his time in Dresden, Putin had a Stasi identification card, which was later discovered in good condition. Reports from various sources suggest that with this card, Putin could access various Stasi facilities, though he was not authorized to spy for them. By the 1990s, major changes were happening in communist countries. These changes left 2 significant impressions on Putin. First, a fear of mass uprisings. When the 1989 revolution in East Germany occurred, Putin was still serving as a KGB officer, witnessing the protests that led to the fall of the Berlin Wall. In his book of interviews titled First Person, Putin recounts how he called for help when the KGB headquarters in Dresden was stormed by protesters in December 1989, but Moscow, under Mikhail Gorbachev, did not send reinforcements. Putin quickly took the initiative to destroy documents that he believed would later incriminate Russia. In the same book, First Person, Putin recalls, "We burned so many documents that the furnace exploded." The second impression was a deep disgust with the power vacuum in Moscow after the Soviet Union collapsed. Despite the changes, Putin was powerless to resist. In 1991, he resigned from the KGB and began his political career by working at City Hall in his hometown of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, as an advisor to Mayor Anatoly Sobchak on international relations, until 1996. During this time, Putin was also active in the political party, Our Home is Russia, founded by Prime Minister Viktor Chernomyrdin. While many of his colleagues in East Germany became part of a network of individuals who had lost their previous roles, Putin was fortunate to find himself in a prosperous political environment in the newly independent Russia. By 1996, his political career was on the rise, and he managed to avoid the downfall that befell Sobchak, instead building connections with the new Russian elite. In that same year, Putin moved to Moscow, the Russian capital, to work in the Kremlin, holding various positions such as deputy head of the Department for Presidential Property Management until March 1997, and deputy chief of staff to the president until May 1998. That same year, in 1998, Putin was appointed by President Boris Yeltsin as director of the FSB, the successor to the KGB, until August 1999. On December 31, Yeltsin's behavior became increasingly erratic, and on New Year's Eve in 2000, Yeltsin suddenly announced his resignation as president. According to the 1993 Russian Constitution, when a president resigns, the prime minister automatically assumes the role of acting president and is required to hold a presidential election within 3 months. Putin, the relatively unknown prime minister at the time, rose to replace Yeltsin because the constitution demanded it. However, well before Yeltsin's resignation, Putin had already told Yeltsin that he was an extraordinary candidate to succeed him. Putin began to gain public attention when the Chechen War erupted. Putin was vocal in blaming Chechen separatists for bombing Russian buildings. He appeared on television multiple times, showcasing his patriotic stance that Russian interests were paramount. His public appearances and framing of the Chechen rebellion as a heroic fight boosted his popularity. At the time, Putin was viewed as a liberal Democrat who wanted to continue market reforms. He also had the support of Yeltsin's circle of oligarchs, including Boris Berezovsky. With the backing of these oligarchs, Putin smoothly transitioned into the role of acting president and held the presidential election. However, unlike his predecessors, Putin was willing to build alliances with any group that still held influence and a following. Despite never officially joining the Unity Party, which finished second in the popular vote in the Russian general elections, Putin's firm and tough stance on the Chechen rebellion caused his popularity to soar, leaving his political rivals behind. The oligarchs and reformist supporters who had been part of Yeltsin's political circle seemed pleased with Putin, who appeared to have come out of nowhere and could be molded to their liking. On March 26, 2000, Putin won the presidential election in a single round with 53% of the vote. He was inaugurated as Russia's elected president on May 7. What the Russian oligarchs thought of Putin, who seemed to come from nowhere, was likely the beginning of everything. 3 months after Putin took office, he began taking control of the media. Independent television station NTV was shut down, some media outlets were raided, and news reports were censored by the government. This marked a shocking moment for the oligarchs and Kremlin veterans. From this moment, Putin established his style of rule, believing that political power needed to be built using resources from all sectors. In Russia's context, the most influential group consisted of businessmen, or what we would call oligarchs. Thanks for your support.